Hi, everyone. It looks like we lost the mayor's audio and video for a second, so stand by, and we will try to get our technology going, and we'll go again. Stand by in just one moment. At this time, I will turn it over to Charlotte Mayor Lyles.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. On Thursday, January 23rd, a series of events resulted in the loss of life of Mr. Harold Easter. The series of events has been internally investigated, and as a result, 5 Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department officers have been cited by the chief for termination. Several Charlotte-Mecklenburg police policies have been cited for review and revision. Today, once again, as mayor, I ask this community to understand that we help to take this important step for the Easter family to find some comfort and to understand that we acknowledge their loss. I also want to acknowledge the leadership and the accountability of Chief Jennings, who has taken this responsibility to take the action, as well as understanding that as the leader of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police, he has an accountability to our citizens and as well to every officer that wears his shield. The Charlotte City Council and I are also accountable to our residents. We stood in this place one time too many, and today is the acknowledgement that we know that there will be videos released by the judge in the next week, that the district attorney will make a determination based upon an investigation by his office. But none of that ever brings back a loss. It will not bring back Mr. Easter. It will not remove the issues that we will have in dealing with this with our own police department. But yet, through every part of what we do in this community, every action we take, I'm most proud that we can acknowledge when we need to do change. And so I'm looking forward to the October release of our draft community safety plan, because that plan not only deals with how do we address violence in this community, but it also addresses how we police this community as well. So today isn't the end of what is going to be a difficult time for our community, but it never will be a part of anything more than moving forward with improving how do we make sure that we police well and we protect our citizens first and foremost. With that, I'll take questions.
Our first question will be from Brett Jensen. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, I've spoken to some people who've seen the video and they say it doesn't look good. As a matter of fact, they say it looks bad. Do you anticipate more protests or riots or anything as a result? And have you seen the video?
I have not seen the video. As you know, one of the difficulties in the law that was written for the release of videos, it really doesn't allow the public body, the city council, to see these videos. My understanding is that the Easter family has seen the video. They have the ability to do that under the law, but we expect this video to be released in the next several days. And so I have not seen it, but I can only imagine that if we've cited 5 officers for termination, that video footage will play a significant role in this investigation.
Amanda Zhao with the Charlotte Observer.
Hi, Mayor. Earlier this morning, we heard the chief say that because the case was turned over to the SBI, that slowed the internal affairs investigation process. In the future, for in-custody deaths or officer shootings, do you support cases being turned over to the State Bureau of Investigations?
I believe that we have to investigate every case thoroughly, and I believe the internal investigation takes place, the State Bureau of Investigation, as well as the DA. We want to do what's right, and we encourage and support those investigations taking place. In this case, I believe in the past, we've waited until the State Bureau has sit down their results. But in this case, Chief Jennings has taken the action, and I expect that that will be a protocol that we'll follow in the future.
David Hodges.
Hi, Mayor. Thanks for your time. On the topic of accountability with the police, I wanted to ask you about use of force reports. Those are considered a personnel record, and so they're private, don't have to be released to the public, but City Council, under your leadership, could take action, whether it's for this case or any number of cases that we've seen recently. Do you have any intention of bringing use of force reports in front of the council so that some of them can be made public?
David, I hope that what my recall is right about this. I'm not sure that the mayor or the city council has the ability to do that. I believe that accountability rests with the city administration. Now, saying that, that's just today. I believe that what you're seeing across this country and what I've been reading about police reform and what's going to be ideas for change and to be something that we could develop additional trust is that use of force reports need to be disclosed in a way that we get officers that are not doing the work in the way that we would expect them to respect the people, even if the people are doing harmful things in criminal action, that there has to be a standard of protocol and that we ought to be able to use of force reports, the resulting investigation of them, to determine whether or not officers are appropriate to work in the community.
Lauren Howard.
Hi, Mayor Lyles. This is Lauren Howard with Spectrum News. And I just wanted to ask you, it looks like, or CMPD has said that Officer Brentley Vinson is one of the officers who's been cited for this incident. And they also looked at the fact that he was involved in the 2016 shooting of Keith Lamont Scott. Is there any sort of, what is your reaction to that? That this person, continued to be on the force or was cleared? And do you think there's any sort of, if this looks like a lack of discipline or a lapse in disciplinary actions in CMPD at all?
I can't address the officer's name that you've called, and I expect that will be a part of the investigation process. I also think that, again, if we have the right protocols in place, and as we get to those protocols, that we would look more closely at people that have recurring incidents of complaints. We've had that since we've had the Citizens Review Board. I believe that is something that's important for us to have overall, but I can't speak to the individual names that the name that you've asked me about because I'm not aware of any of those connections.
Our next question comes from Nate Moribito.
Hey there, Mayor. Nate Moribito, WCNC Charlotte. Thanks for your time. Question for you about contact with the family. Have you talked to Harold Easter's family? And if so, what did you say? And if not, why not?
That is really a great question. It's a very tough question for me as an individual because you have great depth of feeling for any loss. And typically what my reaction has been when there are people that are lost as a result of being employees of the city or people that have contributed to our city, I try very hard to acknowledge those folks with a personal note or a call. In this case, we always know that there is going to be additional litigation. There will be legal representation. And sometimes those things kind of just interfere with the ability to do what I'm doing today, which is to say that we really deeply regret the loss of Mr. Easter. So I have not spoken with the family. I would expect that there will be a lot of discussions. I know that the family has seen the video, and that's because of the law that they can and I can't. So there are many things about being mayor that I would change. Being more of a person would really be helpful.
Our next question will come from Robin Kennedy. Go ahead, Robin.
Hi, Mayor. It's Robin with Fox 46. Thank you for taking time to speak with us. Obviously, this is emotional for you. What needs to change? What do you feel like? I know you haven't seen the video, but what needs to change with CMPD?
You know, when we developed and made the referral to the community safety plan, I always had two overall assumptions in the work that we ought to be doing, that we do need to look at our policies to make sure that the things that we were doing were appropriate action for law enforcement in our city, not every other place, but our city. And for me, that really meant the things that we've already adopted, like the 8 can't wait policies. Those are things that really, I think, a city like ours would respect. But I also see through the lives of the community, the harm that violence causes. And so one of the things that we've also adjusted is to say, how do we look at violence from root causes, and how do we look at things where disputes are being done? You know, Mr. Easter's loss is perhaps a place where our community has accepted kind of just criminal behavior is okay. That we have recurring incidents of people that are just doing things, and we take it in stride. My goal is to see whatever we need to do, that it's just not okay. That just because you're selling drugs, or just because you have the ability to have a gun, that's just the way that we police. That we want people to just continue to just kind of let it be what it is. And my goal is that our community safety plan begins to address violence very early, that we begin to work with our police officers to understand that we want to stop this at the beginning and not be a recurring sense of criminality in our city.
Alexandra Elitch.
Hey, Mayor Lyles, this is Alexandra with WCCB News. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I have a nice little 3-parter question, so please bear with me. Are you concerned that the officers terminated will then go to a neighboring jurisdiction and seek employment from another agency? Second part to that, why hasn't there been an audit of CMPD? And then do you just support the Citizens Review Board having more power, including subpoena power?
Okay, so I'm going to go with the last one. Since I've been elected to council, I have supported subpoena power for the Citizens Review Board. We've passed resolutions. We've gone to Raleigh. I support that. I think it's important, and it's not important just because it's one-sided for the people that are making the complaints. I think it's important for police officers' credibility as well. So the second question, I believe, or the first question was the idea that officers, first, they have not been terminated. We have a policy with the Civil Service Review that they've been cited for termination. Now, I know it's easy to say terminated, but I just have to make sure that I'm very clear on that statement. And my understanding is that has happened when people have resigned to avoid termination. That because when you're terminated, it's different than if you say, I've resigned. I do not support a policy where any city employee takes resignation as a consequence of some wrongdoing to avoid the consequences of wrongdoing. So I do not support the idea that you should be able to avoid the action or the consequences of an investigation and take retirement and move on. It's just not that simple anymore. And I can't remember the middle question now. The second question, Susan.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry. It was, why hasn't there been an audit of CMPD, something that Action NC, Safe Coalition has been calling for quite some time?
There's a misnomer in the community that we're not doing that audit. We have that audit inside of our Budget and Effectiveness Governance Committee. I think what we're struggling with is, some people use audits, and it's like I've done public accounting for a long time, and audits are just, well, did you spend the money that you said that you were going to spend. That's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is determine how services that are needed in the community should be best allocated the funding. So this is, I give this as an example, I take no credit for it. I have to give this to Councilmember Eggleston, who said, do we need to have sworn police officers who could be working on helping us reduce violence in the community to do traffic stops and accident investigations? That's perhaps something that we should be looking at. In other communities, what they're doing is, while we have an internal crises unit around mental health, that other places actually use mental health services to deliver that. That's the kind of audit that we're talking about right now. Are we doing the right things with the money that we have? Are there better ways to focus on the issues that CMPD should focus on? As I said, recurring criminality, violence in the community, instead of traffic, instead of some of the other things that we're doing.
Tina Terry.
Hey there, Mayor. This is Tina Terry with WSOC. I hope you're doing well. Safe Coalition North Carolina sent a statement via Twitter today that basically saying that you, Mayor, should admit that you don't have faith in CMPD. Is that something that you could say truthfully? The second question, they are also calling for a plan for true civilian oversight of CMPD. Do you support that as well?
You know, I have the utmost respect for that organization. The Southern Coalition for Justice has been an organization that I've learned from, listened to quite, and they've contributed a lot. And so I know that they were the folks that help us get the Citizens Review Board adopted and approved. But things don't remain static. And so I believe that we are beginning to see across this country, not just in Charlotte, but across this country, requirements that should be done nationally. It shouldn't be just that Charlotte has one rule and then Atlanta another and then Birmingham another. And I am hoping that at some point someone will realize that there ought to be national standards for policing across this country. It's not happening now. I know that the federal government's not going to pay any attention to it now, but I think that the various communities in this country, and I communicate often with other mayors, but I think you'll find mayors in other cities coming in and saying to the federal government, it's not sufficient to have community policing as a statement without having the actions and the parameters and regulations that we should be looking at nationally for a community, to hold our country together right now. This is happening everywhere. And we shouldn't have these, well, this is the way Charlotte does it. This is the way St. Louis does it. It's just unacceptable in terms of trying to build a country where people feel safe. Other European countries are not like that. They're not like this. And I appreciate states having the ability to manage all of this, but the federal government could certainly help us set some standards.
Amanda Zhao.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to have my hand up.
Okay, stand by just one moment. Okay, well, everyone, we appreciate your time today. Mayor Lyles, thank you as well. Reporters, outlets, we will send this file to you here shortly, and we appreciate everyone tuning in this afternoon.
Thank you for taking the time as the voice of the community for people that educate and inform the community. What you're doing is important work. And I know that it can be difficult work sometimes for us to be the subject and intent of, but the work that you're doing is important. And I understand that. So thank you very much. I really appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Mayor. Hope you all have a great subject and intent of, but the work that you're doing is important.